The great 13th century theologian Thomas Aquinas said, "There is nothing on this earth, nothing more to be prized than true friendship." Friendship is a form of love that transcends every barrier. In friendship, age does not matter. Gender, color, culture, language, geography, political party, these are not barriers to real friendship. Even the mistakes we make do not get in the way of abiding friendship. As the wise old radio host Bernard Meltzer, how many of you ever listened to Bernard Meltzer? I'm the only one. As he put it, a true friend is someone who thinks you are a good egg, even though he knows you are slightly cracked. In the commanding 15th chapter of John's Gospel, Jesus calls the disciples to be what? Friends, his friends. They are no longer his students. They are no longer his servants. They have been raised to the distinguished level of friend. But there is a string attached to this holy friendship. It is not unconditional. You are my friends, Jesus says, if you do what I command. The commandment, this string attached, could not be more clear. Love one another, he says. Love one another as I have loved you. That's a pretty big, long string. This is, in my estimation, the most difficult commandment in all of Holy Scripture. Here, Jesus extends the honor of friendship while commanding us to do the impossible, to love one another as he loves. If there is anything in the Bible that might frighten someone away from Christianity, it is this daunting directive: love one another as I have loved. It is an insurmountable task. We cannot do it. We cannot be so giving, so forgiving, so outreaching, so understanding, so healing, so patient, so kind, so consistently self-sacrificing as was Jesus. Love one another as I have loved you. Jesus never tried to define love with words. He did not lecture on love or even preach about it except for a few simple, straightforward words. Instead, Jesus demonstrated love. He gave love. He lived a new kind of love. And he offered friendship of a higher order. The Greeks, in whose language the New Testament was most widely circulated, put a lot of intellectual energy into defining love with words. They used different terms to speak and write of the various forms of love. There was phileo, a word which meant a general attraction to a thing or to a person. Could be ice cream, boats, tulips, nice yarn, chocolate. Or the kind of love, this is the kind of love expressed by Walt Disney when he said, "I love Mickey Mouse more than anyone I've ever known." Phileo is familiar to us from words like philosophy, love of wisdom, or Philadelphia, love of brother. From phileo, we also get the word philos, friend, the very word extended by Jesus according to John's Gospel. The ancient Greeks believed that friendship is the highest and best form of love. Another kind of love described by the Greeks is eros, the love which desires to have, the love that often tries to own. This is what we might today call hot love. passionate love that pursues ecstatic ends. If cinema and publishing and advertising are any indication, eros is the most valued form of love in our culture. But the Greeks also had storge, familiar or familial love, such as the mutual love of parents and children, or the affection old friends have for one another, or of course the inimitable bond, those of you who've known this before, that bond between a beloved pet and its owner. The love of which Jesus speaks is unlike these others. It is identified, as many of you know, as what? Agape love, generous, self-sacrificing love offered for the sake of another, devoted love that values a person not because of what that person has to offer, but because all creatures, all children of God, are worthy of such divine love. With striking frequency, this word agape is used especially in St. Paul's writings without mentioning the object of this love. Most of the time, it isn't clear what agape love is referring to. Is it the love of God or Christ for humanity? Is it the love of neighbor for neighbor? Is it the love we see in the midst of the disciples? It's not clear. This ambiguity, the ambiguity certainly with which Paul employs the word agape, suggests that agape is an atmosphere, a kind of atmosphere in which the community of faith dwells. In other words, the love of which Christ speaks is where we live. It's what we breathe. It is little wonder that the early church, living and breathing this agape love, appeared strange to the Greeks and the Romans. Followers of Christ would not go to gladiatorial combats where prisoners of war and slaves fought to the death, because they could find no enjoyment of it, as the Romans did. And as you may know, the earliest followers of Jesus would not go to war. Torture and death are incompatible with agape love. The early Christians would not go to a court of law because they felt it was important, again, in this agape love, to settle their disputes among themselves. Agape love led the early Christians to give their slaves the same rights and privileges as free men. To the astonishment of the prevailing culture, a former slave in the first century, a former slave actually became a bishop of Rome. We can see why the world that did not understand or embrace agape thought of the Christians as a little bizarre. They were living a love that was so different, so selfless. It didn't make sense to those who were outside it. I love big musical productions. While on vacation in London, I got to see two shows, School of Rock and Dreamgirls. I haven't been to see Hamilton. If I had the money to go see Hamilton, that would probably be my favorite. It sounds like it's wonderful. But since I haven't seen it, my favorite musical of all time is Les Mis, which has been seen by more than 70 million people in 51 countries and in 22 languages. Les Mis is, of course, based on Victor Hugo's moving story of a man who steals a loaf of bread to feed his dying niece, but is caught and sentenced to prison. The man's name is Jean Valjean. So most of you have seen this too, which is good. After 19 years on a chain gang for stealing that loaf of bread, Jean Valjean is paroled, but treated like an outcast by nearly everyone. A kindly bishop befriends him, takes him into his own home, and treats him with compassion and care. However, embittered by years of prison hardship, Jean Valjean decides to run away, stealing the bishop's silver in the process as he leaves. Once again, he is caught by the police, and once again, Jean Valjean is facing a severe prison sentence. Unexpectedly, however, the bishop informs the police that the silver was not stolen after all. It was a gift. And furthermore, he had forgotten to give Valjean a couple of additional valuables. And at that, the bishop hands his friend Jean a pair of beautiful silver candlesticks, offering him a way out of his predicament, offering him a fresh start. This is agape love. This is the self-sacrificing friendship Christ offers. Love that puts others first. Love that knows how much more important is life than silver. Love that offers fresh starts. Love that creates reconciliation. Life-changing love. This is the love, this is the higher order of friendship to which Jesus calls us, saying, "Love one another as I have loved you." Go forth then, my friends, and befriend others. Go forth and love as Jesus loved. For there is nothing on this earth more to be prized.